Hey guys, welcome back to the garden. So before we get into the tour today, I want to announce that the third quarter sticker is available on my Patreon. It is designed by my brother-in-law and it is absolutely adorable. Oh my goodness. You guys have heard me say probably every single week that I am a lazy gardener, and that means that I'm trying to put in as little effort as possible in order to get the most harvest. I am not going to do anything that is not necessary, and I still get a really lovely garden and a really abundant harvest, and I'm pretty proud of that. So this sticker is for everybody who is at the $5 tier or above on my Patreon. All of you guys who are on there already will start earning towards it immediately, and for all the rest of you, you can join anytime between now and when the next sticker is announced for the fourth quarter and start earning towards this sticker as well. It is another very hot day in the garden. I'm going to be standing in the shade as much as humanly possible. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that it did finally rain this week. And so today the garden is looking a little bit better. I did have to water the garden twice, very deep waterings last week. And it seems to be doing a lot better for it. And for those of you who are new here, yeah, I do not normally water my garden. I try to set it up such that it doesn't really need to be watered very often, part of the lazy gardening. It took 3 weeks without rain, with that final week being entirely above 90 degrees, for me to say, okay, yeah, my garden needs a little bit of help from me. Anyway, I think we're going to be picking some tomatoes. So I have my little red truck basket that my dad built for me last year. We actually gave one of these away for my 10,000 subscriber celebration. And I like this for harvesting tomatoes because it is so wide and flat. You don't really have to stack the tomatoes that much. This is my tomato trellis row. I have them all on this vertical cattle panel, and intermixed with them are my blue cocoa pole beans, which did definitely slow production while it was dry. It is still dry. We did get a little bit of rain, as I mentioned, but not nearly enough. We are actually super behind for the month of June. We're on average get like 4.5 inches of rain, and we're only at like 1.5, maybe approaching 2, depending on where you measure. So definitely low on water. I have been pulling some of my tomatoes early. A lot of them are close to the ground or, as you'll see later, actually touching the ground. So once they've got this blush on them, I've been pulling them in just so that they don't get damaged. And that is a conversation that I've had in the past. I think I have a whole video about it. I'll link it below if I do, where I talk about whether or not you should harvest your tomatoes early or let them vine ripen, and the implications of both of those choices. The wind is all of a sudden on the move here.
Whoa, the wind's all of a sudden on the move here.
Hopefully that doesn't affect our tour too much. Something has been eating my basil, and it has not been me. Oh goodness. I would say that's likely to be a caterpillar, and probably not something I'm gonna have to worry about long term. Check out this tomato. Holy cow. Can I even properly show you guys how massive this tomato is? I have never in my life grown a tomato this big. Wow. That is huge. How did I not notice this thing for so long? Wow. I can't wait for that to ripen. For comparison, here's a regular sized tomato. And here's whatever this thing is. This is probably the result of a fused blossom. And so it is actually multiple tomatoes that are all in one. And it actually feels like the bottom isn't open. So it might actually be like a good usable tomato. These Heinz tomatoes are beautiful. I haven't grown a hybrid before, and I can see the appeal. they are all like just perfect little tomatoes, and these ones have been like the most consistent in not just like shape, but also in the fact that they will ripen pretty evenly and not be as susceptible to just like stuff eating them. I haven't found an eaten one yet. Pretty nice. Alright, so moving on to this second row, I've got a lot of peppers in here and also some eggplant, which I think are finally getting close to a size where they might start putting on fruit. These were just as stunted as my poor little peppers, and I'm really happy with their recovery. Hopefully I will still get some eggplant from them, because eggplant and the stuff I do with it is one of my favorite things that I look forward to in the summer, and I feel like store-bought eggplant just cannot compare to the stuff that I grow at home. So I'm really hoping these guys pull through. Also, right next to this, I have a little lavender plant that I put in. It's growing slow, but it seems to be pretty healthy. I had one in my raised bed for a while, and I think it just got dry too much, so I'm hoping that putting one actually in the ground will give its roots a better chance to continuously access that water that it needs. I'm getting lots of baby peppers. These are all sweet. These are all from saved seeds, and so they're all just like a little bit different. I think it definitely crossed with something, and I'm hoping that that something was a sweet pepper and not a spicy pepper, because then I will have very few sweet peppers this year. As we move back in the row, I've got more eggplant, some zinnias interplanted, and my hot pepper section. These are the only pepper plants I grew that did not come in contact with that contaminated potting soil, so they are looking real healthy. I'm starting to see little peppers on some of them. This one is my Buena Mulata, aka my Clemson pepper, because it starts purple and turns orange, like bright Clemson orange, when it is ready to harvest. So I think that that's real cute. And I kind of keep growing it because of that, because I do live in Clemson, and I did go to Clemson. But also this pepper is just really tasty and very hearty. So lovely, lovely pepper to be growing. Some other stuff I have in here, some Sugar Rush peaches, some Tabascos. I think I've got some Serranos around in here somewhere. Definitely some Anaheims, Anchos, a few, I think I've got a gochujang pepper in here somewhere. Being the person that I am, I don't label them, so I will have to look at the shape of the peppers that are coming out and identify them all that way. This is another lazy gardening trait that I don't necessarily recommend that you copy, but it has worked out fine for me in the past, and it has just made me really, really good at identifying all my different pepper plants, because I can tell you some of them just based on like the branching and leaf structure now. This one is easy. This is a fish pepper. It is the only variegated pepper that I'm growing, so this one's pretty easy to identify. This one right here is a Tabasco. I can tell that because of the shape of the peppers. They also stick straight up as opposed to looping over like a lot of peppers you see. And also the way that the leaves look is different than something like this. I know it's a very subtle difference, but like visually I've looked at it so much that I can see that the way that this plant carries its leaves and even the color of them is different from this one right here. Another interesting thing to know about peppers, if you don't already know, is most of the peppers that you grow are Capsicum annum. That's the Latin name, the family. And Tabascos are Capsicum fructens. And so these peppers are just gonna be genetically more different from most peppers that you grow in the garden, making them easier to identify in my opinion. This one I can tell is my Sugar Rush Peach. I can see that there's a pepper coming on it. It is also sticking straight up, if you can see that. But the leaves on this one are fatter. This one is Capsicum baccatum. That is the same as a habanero. And so the peppers, when they come on, they're not all smooth like your Capsicum annuum ones. They have that like crinkly look that you associate with a habanero or like a really hot pepper. I'm trying to think whether or not ghost peppers are actually Capsicum baccatum, but I think they are. I'll have to double check. I still have my very dead Brussels sprout there in the back. That's the only one I haven't pulled out because I'm kind of waiting to save the seeds from it. And by waiting, I mean waiting on me to do something about it. The plant is done. I just need to actually go in and harvest the seeds. Moving on to this third row here, you can see the corn is really filling out. I have not planted my second round of corn yet. I bet I could still do it, but I think if I'm gonna do it, I gotta get on it and actually get that in the ground. I was gonna put it here. There's more potatoes here than I expected. These all just kind of came up from last year's potatoes that I had forgotten about. And I also need to take care of this Brussels sprout. So that is the thing that has been impeding my second corn planting progress. But this corn is looking really good. As we come back down this row, I've got, that is actually a Brussels sprout that has been super eaten. This one not quite as eaten, but still not healthy looking. This is not the right time of year to be growing Brussels sprouts. These are left over from the spring. I also have in here my sweet peppers. Oh, hello, Kata. How are ya? So these are my backup sweet peppers. These are the ones that I bought when I wasn't sure if my other ones were going to recover. And overall, they're definitely healthier plants than the other ones. So I am glad that I have them. I've got, this is a gypsy pepper. I've got some other stuff over here, giant Marconi, and they're likely to begin ripening soon. And behind where I was just standing are my two trellises. This one has cucumbers and butterfly peas on it. This one is the earliest one that sprouted and is actually looking really good. There are a few smaller plants in here with the weeds. And my cucumbers, although they are continuing to get eaten by the flea beetles, are still growing. Now these are planted a little densely because I had so much trouble getting cucumbers here in the first place. And I'm just like so worried to thin them out because they are still growing really slow. It's not very wet out. Cucumbers need a lot of water. So I'm maybe gonna keep them all until the growth starts taking off again and the weather conditions become a little better for them. When it comes to the noodle bean trellis, it is very suddenly noodle bean season. We've got them everywhere. And I think last week we saw just like the first tiny little babies of noodle beans, and now these are all like 12 to 24 hours, I would say, away from harvest size. These things grow really fast. I also want to show you how gorgeous noodle bean flowers are. Look at that. Also, we've got a little tag-along friend here. I tend to get a lot of these on my noodle beans, and also these ants tend to hang out on them. I think they're probably beneficial. They don't seem to cause any harm to the plant, but they are especially interested in this spot where the beans come out right here. Oh, and the wasps. The wasps really like this plant as well, right there at the tip of where the beans come out. It makes me think that there's like some nice sugary sap or something for them to get. These are paper wasps. They're pretty tame. As long as I don't get in his way, he won't bother me. Alright, moving on to this fourth row. This is where I have put some of my tomatoes that I had extras that I didn't know what to do with. Because it took me a while, they are a little farther behind, but they are just now starting to flower. they're also way more in the shade than those other ones are. So everything they do will also be slower because of that. Whoop. And as we come forward here, I have to walk through my Cosmo path that reseeded itself. They are looking really nice, although I would say they are kind of in between flushes of blooms, and I'm sure the heat and the dryness isn't helping that very much, but we still got a couple pretty blooms. My basil in this area has been growing pretty slow as well. It looks like very upset by the lack of water, and this was extra, so I'm not too upset, but we can just hope that once rain returns they will really perk up. All the way down here you can see a lot of dead fava beans from the spring, dead poppies that are making some seeds for me. And we've also got this blueberry bush here at the end that got a little crispy, but I'm thinking it'll recover. It has been through this before, unfortunately, because I thought it was dead, but really it was just that I hadn't watered it in too long, and it recovered from that. So here's to hoping it is able to recover from this as well. And while we're here at the back, I just want to point out a couple plants I have. I have a turmeric, a feverfew, and my lemongrass is right there. Here on the back edge of the garden. I'm hoping that because at least the feverfew is perennial, lemongrass would be if it stayed a little warmer here, but the feverfew should make a nice big tall like physical barrier along the garden, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is fill in some perennial barriers. We also don't talk about my lemon balm much because it's hidden behind the corn. But I do have lemon balm back here as well, and it seems to be doing just fine. Alright, we are going to move over towards the raised bed section. This section changes a lot slower because I do have a lot of perennials over here. They are all getting crispy fried even with me watering them, just because it's been so very hot. And it is also hot right now in the sun, so I will be out here only very briefly to kind of show you guys this is progressing beyond its borders, and I think I'm gonna let it. I also, if you can see this potato bed back here, those are pretty much entirely died back, so I do need to harvest these potatoes pretty soon, and once I do, I plan to let the Jerusalem artichoke kind of have this space. It's supposed to be like fairly aggressive, and I'm hoping it fills in nicely. As far as the berry patch goes, the dryness definitely has been getting to them. I haven't been able to really harvest good berries in a couple of weeks, just because any berries that do come on get crispified, because the plants are dehydrated, it's hot outside, and that's really unfortunate, but I think at least some of the fruit is usable, and I'm hoping, again, there's only so much I can do with actually watering it. It's like a good rain soaking that this needs, and even though it rained the other day, it was like 1/10 of an inch, not nearly enough. So I would love to see these plants get rained on really hard and hopefully recover a little bit from their chronic dehydration. You can even see the fruits, like look how powdery that looks. That is not a healthy raspberry. I think that might actually be sunburn because it's only on one side of it, you see? Sunburn can happen to plants, especially fruits. So if you ever see like super light patches, especially on your tomatoes and peppers, could be sunburn. My poor fig over here is super suffering. It had a ton of leaves and has dropped almost all of them because it got so dry. I can see it's trying again now that I've been watering it, but definitely not ideal for this baby tree here. My citrus is holding out a little better, but you can see it's also missing leaves along some of the stems. And all the way up here by the front of my house, this fig is doing a little bit better because it's been in the shade, and my elderberry did get crispified but has been kind of holding on since I started watering it. It did lose its one set of flowers though to the heat. And I am going to lose my mind to this heat if I don't go inside. But we are going to go inside, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how I'm using some of this produce that I'm harvesting. Specifically, I'm going to focus on tomatoes because that is what we picked today, and that is what I am having to deal with every day. So, let me tell you about my onions. I forgot to mention to you guys, I cleaned and braided my onions and garlic. So I've got a few bunches here, a couple bunches here, and then around the corner, I've got a couple more bunches here. And for my garlic, I've got 1, 2, 3 bunches of braided garlic. I do have a video on braiding garlic if you're interested, but these all turned out really nice. And then I have my basket of ones that were too small to braid or didn't look good for some reason. And this is my use first before anything else pile. So anyway, like I was saying, the first thing that I do with tomatoes when they come in is actually just set them down somewhere and let them finish ripening. I would say my tomatoes are almost never perfectly fully ripe when I pull them. Occasionally they are, but usually not. And so I set them in as single of a layer as I can in baskets. This one is still stacked. I need to kind of spread them out. But I do lay them out and I let them start to ripen. And then either from here I will pull them fresh for whatever meal, or I will put them into the fridge and they will wait here until I process them into usually tomato sauce or salsa. I also am working on making sun-dried tomatoes this year. I have this specific variety called Borghese that is supposed to be for that. They are these really small tomatoes. I wasn't expecting them to be so small. And these, when they are fully ripe, I cut them in half and salt them and then set them outside on a sunny day to start drying. I will briefly show you on top of my car there. That is a cookie sheet with one of those like cookie cooling racks in it, and then the tomatoes are set on top of that and then covered by my cheesecloth so that the bugs aren't really tempted by them. If it is going to be like really sunny and hot like it is today, I will leave them out there all day and bring them in at night. If I lived in a drier climate, I could leave them out all night, but because it is so humid here, there will be a lot of dew in the morning and it might take a little while for that to dry, so I would rather them just be inside in air conditioning where it is like the air is actually being dried. And I will leave them out for like a couple of days if I can, and these smaller ones I'm hoping will dry faster. In the past I've had a problem with it taking too long for them to dry and them molding, so what I would do is let them start drying outside and then bring them in and finish them in the dehydrator. And the reason that I didn't just start them in the dehydrator in the first place is because I tried that and they were kind of flavorless, which didn't make sense because my tomatoes are always very flavorful. So it wasn't the tomatoes' fault, but I think it was the drying process. I think actually spending a couple of days in the hot sun covered in salt, I think it's a baby fermentation that happens, and that is part of why sun-dried tomatoes have this like tang to them that you are so used to. At least that's my theory. I've had a really hard time finding people on the internet talking about that and why dehydrated sun-dried tomatoes are not as tasty and what actually makes that tanginess for them. So been experimenting with that. I think last year doing half and half worked out pretty well. Hopefully this year I can try fully sun drying them. If not, I will also finish these in the dehydrator. And whenever I'm like settled on a method, probably next year, I will be making like a full video showing you guys the process. Kate. Hi. Cutie. So as far as how I'm handling some of the other produce that comes in, I've got the purple pole beans and now the noodle beans coming in. And mostly I try to eat those fresh. When they were first coming in like small bunches, which normally they would have ramped up by now, but I think the dryness really, like I said, slowed them down. The pole beans, I just bring in, and generally that same day I will coat them in oil and salt and like bake them in the oven, 425 for like 15-ish minutes. They come out all crispy. It's really easy to eat. And if I am feeling higher effort, I will make a stir fry, and I will throw beans in the stir fry chopped up into like short little pieces. I think stir fry is a really lovely way to kind of use up like you have like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and kind of pull it together into what seems like a really intentional, cohesive meal. If you're someone who makes curries, you can also use that trick in curries. Potatoes also go pretty well in curries, but not nearly as well in stir fry. So I have like just this small collection of potatoes here from this year so far. And so these could just go chopped up into my next curry, and that would be a great use for this tiny portion. Alright guys, that is all I have for you today. Hopefully you found that really helpful, especially I know a lot of you want help dealing with the produce as it comes out of your garden, so I'm trying to share as much of that like realistic knowledge with you as I can, being somebody who is also, in the grand scheme of things, relatively new to all of this. So I hope you found that helpful. Let me know anything else that you think would be really helpful for you. And also don't forget to check out this sticker on my Patreon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening!